Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing you can say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Welcome to DRSFC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I'm André Carlisle, one soccer nerd, and I've got two others with me. Donald Wine. How are you, Donald?
I'm tired. I've been working every day for the last month, but I am excited for this particular episode because even though it's a little bit delayed, it's well worth the wait.
Yeah, and Donald's not exaggerating. Every time we talk to him, he's either got to go to work, or he's at work, or he can't talk because he's working.
I might be working right now? Question mark.
It's a possibility. If you're expecting Donald to be on the clock, no, he's not. He's not working. If you're not, then it's fine. Don't worry about it. Mind your business. Eboni, she's also here with us. Eboni, how are you?
Good. Getting prepped for the season, multiple seasons. So I'm happy. I'm here though. I'm excited about this chat because it's one that really got me into this sport. So
same. So what we're gonna do, and you've probably already guessed by the title, which I haven't thought of yet, but we'll get there. We're gonna be talking about Lewis Hamilton. He's an iconic figure in sports, and I think I've always tangentially knew that he was this really impressive figure, but I wasn't super into F1 from the time I became the first time I became aware of it. So I don't have these decades of history, which means I've missed the majority of his career and also winning because he's done a lot of that. And so I wanted to have Donald on to talk about a lot of that, to kind of catch people up and frame it a little bit, because we see him as a character we kind of know, given the context clues, right? You see how important he is walking around the paddock, how much he's celebrated, how much he's beloved, how much other people talk about him, some of it racing, some of it for the other activism that he does. There's a lot around him as a figure that you can kind of piece it together. But I wanted to get deeper into it and get into the context of what makes this dude so special. So Donald did a little bit of digging and really just has lists of accolades about what he has been and the kind of driver he was, even from his pre-F1 days to the F1 days, and then especially starting off year one super impressively.
He is, when people call him the greatest driver ever, the lists back it up. I was telling these guys before that they have multiple Wikipedia articles on the list of accolades that he has, because even Wikipedia thinks that the list is so big it cannot be in one article. That's how many things that he has, or how many lists he's a part of. But let's start from the beginning, right? He just turned 40. He was born in January 1985 in Stevenage, in the United Kingdom, and started driving from an early age, was karting when he was 6 years old. He won several national titles in the go-kart, the competitive go-karting portion. And then he got signed to the McLaren Mercedes Young Drivers Program in 1998. From there, his stature of people thinking, oh, this kid might actually be the one, like Neo, the chosen one. It was in 98, because soon after he was on the kart circuit for 2 years. He won the karting World Cup and European Championship in 2000. And at that point, they were like, this guy's too good for go-karting. We need to put him in an actual race car. So he graduated to Formula 3. In 2003, he won the Formula Renault UK, which is kind of one of the smaller series. And then they said, okay, now we really need to get him on the fast track to getting up into some of the more competitive race circuits. So he started with the Formula 3 Euro Series. He won that in 2005. They then put him in the GP2 series, which back then was kind of what is now Formula 2. It was kind of the precursor to that. And that was the very next year. He won in 2006. And McLaren said, enough is enough. We need this guy. We need him right now. So they signed him in 2007. Now, in 2007, he enters the grid. Australian Grand Prix, becomes the first black driver in F1 history. And to this point, he is the only black driver in F1 history. And you have to kind of think about what he walked into, because what a lot of people don't remember is that McLaren in 2007 was in a bit of controversy. I wouldn't say a bit. It was a lot of controversy. It was their own version of Spygate, which is funny because it was around the same time as the Patriots Spygate. So they kind of got the same moniker. But what happened was, they consider it more of an espionage controversy, because they had a guy, it was a technical guy, who had come from Ferrari to McLaren. and brought old technical plans with him. And McLaren was like, we should use these. So now that we know what Ferrari's doing, we should kind of use these. Ferrari found out, FIA found out, it became a huge deal for, to shorten the controversy, because we could have a whole pod on that. McLaren was banned from the constructors race in 2007. They were fined $100 million. And even to the point where Lewis Hamilton.
Wait. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? Because we're in America, we're used to sports, like when owners get fined, it's like $1 million, or it's like 500. It's like pocket change. This was $100
million United States George Washington greenback dollars. If you want to count that in your home, please let me know where your home is so that I can come count with you, because that's a lot of money. But the thing about it was they were banned from the constructors race. And then any race that Lewis Hamilton or his then teammate Fernando Alonso, any race that they won, of course, when you have the podium, you have the three drivers who are first, second, third, and then you have the constructor of the winning team. The constructor's podium was left vacant if McLaren won a race for the entire 2007 season. With all that, he walked in and immediately was like, this grid, y'all aren't competition to me. I'm striving to be better. And he came in with that chip of being the great one and having to back up the fact that a lot of people think that this dude is earmarked for greatness. He finished second in year one by 1 point to Kimi Räikkönen. Fernando Alonso, his teammate, tied with him at 109 points. And I think that part you wrap your head around, you go, a rookie challenging at that point a two-time F1 champion that is his teammate, and another guy who's considered one of the greats in Kimi Räikkönen. He walked in and said, I'm a rookie. I don't care. I'm just going to challenge all of you for this. And it wasn't long before he found real success. 2008, he won his first driver's championship. Andre, as you mentioned, he's won 7. But I need people to realize that he was second in 2007. He was second to his teammate Nico Rosberg in 2016. And 2021, we already know what happened there.
Oh, yeah.
So he easily could have 10, including 8 in a row. Remember, the record is he's tied for the record with Michael Schumacher with 7. He could easily have 10 and blow all of those away. So let me talk about just a few of the records that he has that are incredible. He has 105 wins. That's far and away the most all time. He has 104 pole positions, far and away the most all time. 202 podiums, most all time. And he makes the podium in his career. If you average out the number of times he's made a podium per race, he makes a podium 56.74% of the time. Far and away the best ever. His 356 appearances and starts, that's both of them are second to Fernando Alonso, but he has a lot of records with race starts, most races with a single constructor. That is only going to be challenged by Max Verstappen if he stays at Red Bull. It's the only guy who's even within range of catching him in the next decade. 4,862 and a half career points. That's the most all time. And again, not close. 4 wins in his first race, tied for most all time. And he has the most win. If you think about the most wins at the same Grand Prix, that list, he's first all time with 9 at the British. He's second all time with Hungarian at 8. And he's fourth all time with the Canadian Grand Prix, where he has 7. Again, the list goes on and on. I wrote down a bunch of them, 176 front rows, either first or second position at the start of a race, most all time. But outside of the racing world, he was inaugurated into the Hall of Fame in 2017. That man was like 30 when he got out. Sorry, he was 32 when he got into the Hall of Fame, and he had been in the race grid for like a decade. Already, they're like, you're in the Hall of Fame. In 2020, he won what's called the President's Award. It's one of the highest honors you can win from the FIA. He actually shared it that year with Michael Schumacher, who was obviously the guy he's catching. It was the year that he tied Michael Schumacher for most World Drivers' Championships. He became a knight in 2021, so that is Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton to everyone out there. And in 2022, we've talked about his link with Ayrton Senna and how he considers Senna one of his role models growing up and one of the guys that he's really looked up to. Brazil, he considers his second home. And in 2022, Brazil made it that. They gave him honorary citizenship. And again, I just listed some of the accolades. I don't even know how I can properly tell you how to look up the rest of them, because there's so many links on his wiki bio to different lists of accolades that he has that you're going to have a conniption reading them, because there's just so many. And you just think about the fact that he's 40 years old. He's still driving. He's in this new situation with Ferrari, and hoping again to still be one of the best on the grid is nothing short of amazing. Like the worst that he finished was last year, 7th.
Yeah.
And that was with a car that we've talked about in the short period of the show as not being one that he is was up to the par and caliber that he's had in the past. Now that he's in one that's considered to be one of the better cars,
Hopefully,
what can he do with that, right? And
yeah.
and so
Well,
that's just a little bit of the history of Sir Lewis Hamilton.
when you were talking, there were so many like records that I wanted to like look up and go back, and I'm gonna have to go back and like look them up just to like properly find like the numbers to add context. But I did look up the pole positions by drivers, to look up the pole positions by number, how many you got, because he said far and away by everybody, and I wanted to know contextually how far and away above everybody. We know that like Max Verstappen, like we're especially if you've like tuned into F1 from like the Drive to Survive pool, like if you got in, you're tired, unless you're Dutch, maybe you're tired of this Max Verstappen thing. This context will maybe tell you why in 2021 the FIA was just like, do whatever you can so somebody else can win the damn championship, because Lewis was absolutely dragging everybody. Okay, pole positions, Lewis Hamilton, you already said it, 104. Michael Schumacher, another driver everybody says could be like one of the best ever, 68. Senna, 65. Vettel, 57. Max Verstappen feels like he's been dominating for so long, 40. 40. Right. 40. Lewis Hamilton is 104. Now, obviously, he's been in the sport longer, but that is a ridiculous level of, one, just driving and dominating your opposition over decades, over a decade plus. That is absurd. It's absolutely absurd, which you would expect from somebody who's won so many championships, but just like the numbers tell the story.
You notice a lot of the records, especially like records that he holds that he's far and away the best in. Second, like in the active people, is usually Max Verstappen. Maybe in case of like longevity, is Fernando Alonso has a couple on Lewis, right? Because he's been around even longer. But if you're thinking about some of the wins and podiums and all this stuff, Max Verstappen is like second or fourth or something like that. But he's so far back that you're just like, okay, even if Max continues to be in his dominant pace that he has, it's still going to take him another decade to catch Lewis Hamilton.
Right.
And oh yeah, Lewis Hamilton's expecting to be driving for some of that time to further pad his stats.
No, so I'm fairly new to the game. So I came in at Lewis Hamilton's 2020 season where he won. And then obviously 2021 when the world was angry. And actually, I would say the first time they were ever on a black athlete side, 100, like through and through. So I know we're going to go into it about what that season did for a lot of people and how it made fans of him or enemies of him, especially the way he acted afterwards. So yeah, like learning all about his accolades and like the battles he fought on and off the racetrack. As we get more into it, obviously, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, actually, I do want to get into that part of it as well, because let's talk about him just like as an iconic figure. First, we're, spoiler alert, every single one of us on this episode is black. I don't know if y'all knew that. We all black. So like having the first black F1 driver and them having be one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, that's extremely dope. But then there's also this aspect of Lewis Hamilton that really touches on a lot of things that are important to just like life as a black person in this world, like, right? And not just a black person, because it's not solely about being black, but it is to see somebody who's in it would be easy for him to just be quiet, right? Just like do his own thing. I'm completely outnumbered here. I don't care that I'm winning. I don't need the like negativity or whatever's going to come my way by taking this stance publicly. But he's done it time and time again throughout his career. So Ebony, you were talking a little bit before the pod about things that he's kind of stood for, what he's done that have been important to you that you have noticed. So you can talk a little bit about that aspect of his career as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's always kind of stood for something, even if it was against the FIA or what the racing world considers the norm. So like his demonstrations about the killings of Breonna Taylor, his stance on LGBTQ rights in the Middle East. He uses his platform for not, I don't want to say for good, but he uses it for information. which not a lot of people do. They kind of get into the spotlight and they're like, yeah, we're good. What got me here is not what's going to keep me here, kind of thing, especially if you look at some of these other athletes that just kind of like say they're not taking a side, which is like actually taking a side.
Yes.
So he's very much if it's the right thing for everyone, then I'm going to choose that side always. And that's the one thing I truly admire about him. And that's kind of what got me hooked on him, just because, when the killings of Breonna Taylor happened, and all of a sudden online there's just a lot of talk about this driver who's getting a lot of hate because he wore that shirt for Breonna Taylor. And I was like, well, what is it? Like, I've never watched F1. I don't watch racing. I don't see me in racing. So why would I watch it? And well, once that came out, I was like, well, my roommate at the time, he loved racing and he was watching it. So I just watched along, and I was like, this is really, really interesting. And more so not because just of him, but because there's so much science and math behind it. And I'm a huge math person. And like being 1 millimeter off, and you can go from first to third or anything like that. And I was just like, so not only do I get the human side of like, you recognize this problem that's happening in America as not an American, but you're also pretty damn good at what you do. And that kind of just like made me a fan of Lewis, and which in turn just kind of made me a fan of Formula One.
I think the one thing about Lewis that people need to understand is that he had to figure out in his mind what he wanted to do with regards to being at the forefront of some of these things. And what he decided, whether internally or whether he physically decided he was going to, send it to himself or somebody else, he really had to lead without knowing or caring if the rest of the grid followed. When he wore that shirt for Breonna Taylor, I'm sure he did not expect anybody to join him, right? When he did the demonstrations for George Floyd, I'm sure he did not think that the rest of the grid was going to follow him in that. When he went to Mercedes and said, hey, I'm the only black driver. I want to be in a black race car. I need you to consider changing your entire livery that you've had traditionally from silver and teal to black and teal. Like, I just want you to do that because that would mean something to me, and it would mean more representation for people like me. He even led when it came to coronavirus and figuring out how to keep the sport going while being safe. He was one of those guys that was leading the talks on that. And even as recently as last year, he was helping Max Verstappen lead in the fight against community service for swearing. Right, like it's gone that range that he has, but he's always kind of done this knowing that he's the only black driver on the grid, and that his view of these issues are going to be different from everybody else no matter what. So he doesn't care whether the rest of the grid goes with him. He's going to make his stand. But what makes him such a legendary figure is that people did follow. People did listen. People were aware. The fact that so many of those drivers have opened up and said, I didn't know how bad it was until Lewis Hamilton put me on game. Like that's something that doesn't get quantified with the record books of all the wins and podiums that he has.
Yeah, and that to me is super important because a lot of people never have to think about these issues. Never. Doesn't impact them, doesn't cross their lives. No, they're not going to like talk to somebody and be like, hey, how's it going? And they're just going to be like, feel comfortable enough to be like, this happened and I'm feeling like really down about it. Like I know like in my circles, we talk about these things as well. Like we check in with one another. Like, hey, how you doing? You doing all right? Like, because these things have an effect on you. Obviously, how can they not? And for him to be able to use that, like use his advocacy, use his platform to kind of make other people think about, like, this is the world that other people are experiencing. You're so disconnected from it, but now it's your turn to think about this, understand this a little bit. They never would have had to ever without him. They go their entire lives, birth to death, without thinking about any of these issues at all. And that's not to no shade like to several of the drivers. It's just that we know where a lot of the backgrounds of a lot of the drivers, and even if they're not like affluent, they're definitely not black. Because again, Lewis is the only black driver. So like, why would they think about these things? And what other driver would you expect to kind of stand up and say anything about this? Really nobody. Like post-career, there may be some that get into some level of activism, sustainability, some things like that. But doing it while you're in your prime, while you're one of the best athletes in the world is different. And then obviously when you're black, it's also very different. So like that to me is so meaningful about some of the stuff that he has done and what has made me been like in awe of the dude for such a long time, because like we don't really get that often. Like especially even here in the States, like LeBron James will do a thing or two and then like it'll be a thing. People give their opinions about it, but then next thing happens and he may not. He may choose to sit this one out or whatever. And again, that's his decision. I'm not really knocking anybody on it because it is hard. But this is the thing. When somebody kind of always stands, not just in black issues, but human rights issues across the board, that is like it's an incredible thing to do that, to continue to do it for year after year and win, because you know that all you got to do is look at Instagram comments. Like all you got to do is look at stuff like that, and you can tell not everybody's patting you on the back for these things, right? You do absorb a ton of negativity, but Lewis has always seemed like, and I think for me, it's like the dichotomy, like the contrast to him as a person and as an athlete. On the track, dude's a monster, straight up killer. That's what he is. Off the track, empathetic. Those two things, incredible to exist within the same person. And I just like it makes me in awe of the dude, because I don't know personally if I would be like, if I would have like the courage to be like, all right, I'm gonna last time it was not fun to go through this. Like I'm just like, maybe the next one, like I need a break. And he just kind of keeps going, and it almost seems like the crew around him helps him. His dad seems like he helps him, like he has good people around him that kind of keep him grounded. But he's also just super convicted in what he believes and what he wants to stand up for and what he wants to be more than a driver. And I think that part of him is super, super fascinating and deserves like a level of awe that very rare, like very few athletes get to. Like let's listen to like Stephen A. Smith and some people that talk about sports will criticize LeBron or even say like LeBron's like the Muhammad Ali of our generation. No, he's not. Lewis Hamilton might be.
I think that's the key here, right? You mentioned the fact that he is easy enough to springboard for the things that you care about. It's different to springboard for the things that may not affect you, right? He's not gay, but he's championing those type of issues because he knows it affects black people and it affects him in a way.
Fans. Yeah,
and it affects the fans, right? Yeah, there's fans that have it, and I think the idea that he is always doing that, knowing that again he's doing it as a body of one, and he speaks and he like doesn't really care if people follow. He's just going to say what he thinks, and people are gravitated towards him through his comments. I think is great. He's one guy that I would love to have a dinner with, and even drink the non-alcoholic tequila that he champions, right? Because it would be so fascinating to get the inner workings of how he projects life, right? And how, because again, he's one of the richest athletes on the planet too. Yeah. Most rich people ain't worried about.
I was going to say, I don't think I could afford dinner with Lewis Hamilton, but
he would have to pay, right? We could go to Nando's. I don't care. Not asking for much. Just really the time, right? Is $500,000 or the dinner with Lewis Hamilton. He'd say take the $500,000. That would take him to dinner. So, but no, I think the idea is learning from him has been a world of new knowledge that gives me further respect for the man. Right? Like it makes further respect for him as a driver. And I think that's why so many people gravitate towards him, not just because of what he does on the track, but because off the track, he's a guy that like, they're like, yo, I could like when something's happening to me, it feels like he cares about my struggle too.
I will also say I feel also kind of sad for Lewis because I feel like he's touching on everyone else's humanity. Like, it's because he didn't have that person advocating for him as a black person in the sport. So he had to deal with all the racism alone, all the attacks. Like, if I remember correctly, I was reading about how like the Spanish Grand Prix or just Spanish broadcasters in general were just disgusting towards him. Like, he didn't have anyone in his corner, but now that he's got the big enough platform, he's able to say, well, I'm going to be that person in your corner. And whether that's black rights, LGBTQ rights, whatever it is, he's there for you because he didn't have that. But that's also very taxing on a person and
Mm-hmm.
but it also looks like it never bothers him. So there's obviously someone around him in the right mindset as well to like help him compartmentalize and make the right decision for himself, as well as being able to have his own platform to be open to all people. Which again, like you're talking about, Andre, he's the exception, not the rule. You don't see that in life in general. Someone for everything, who fights for everything if it makes sense. So that's also one of the really cool things about Lewis Hamilton is like he fought alone, but now he's with everyone, so you don't have to anymore.
Yeah, and I think on that point, I like how you phrase that too. Like he usually is one of the rare ones that will stand up. Like think about the invasion of Gaza and what was going on and still going on. He was one of the first athletes to post about that, and one of the only athletes to do it. There's still several who you would assume to be somewhat socially conscious who are just like, I ain't touching that one. But like
Mm-hmm.
he didn't mind. Like he was sharing things like constantly on his Instagram stories. So by the way, ain't a small feat given when you look at the reach and influence that his account has. Like he's one of the most followed athletes in the entire world, and you see him letting people know the atrocities that are happening there when you're not really seeing that represented from like maybe the news, whatever news source you watch, whether you're in the US or whether you're somewhere else in another country. There's a lot of pro-Israel happening, especially from the West. And he wasn't really seeing it that way. He was just like, no, this is wrong. This is a genocide, and I'm gonna put awareness about it. And I think that is another thing. Like he keeps doing this, and it's like it's not out of the norm. This is what he does. And so yes, he takes like the broad issues around the world and we'll talk about them, but then also in his own world he'll fight for like diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh no, I said the word, our podcast going to get canceled now. But like but like he pushes for that. He said, I don't want to only be the only black driver. Like I want to see more women in the sport. I want to see more people of color in the sport. Like he's pushed to do that. And even now that he's left Mercedes, they had the discussion on what do they do with their like program to reach out to like minorities and bring them in. They're going to keep that going because that's like now embedded in how they operate and what they do. And that's all the genesis of all that was Lewis Hamilton. And even against the FIA, we talked about this. He's also got some sense of humor with it, where they come down and say like, we're going to limit how much jewelry you can wear, which won't sound like a stretch given how they want to police like drivers cussing and all that, but they want to like do something about the jewelry. And how did Lewis show up the next time at the track? And you have like 3 watches on each arm, all the earrings and chains.
He had 3 watches, 8 rings, 4 necklaces, 2 earrings, and a partridge in a pear tree.
And I love that. Like, okay, no, we're not going into these weird respectability, this nonsense. And he called out the FI when the dude said we're not rappers. Remember when Mohammed bin Salem said that about rap or about the cussing? Lewis was like, whoa, hold up, that's racist. And of course he's the only one to say that. But it was just like, what are you doing? Like what like and again, this is it's so consistent with Lewis, which I think one just makes him an incredible person. But then like 2, I agree with you, Ebony. Like I hope he's all right, right? I hope the people around him are good. And it seems like it because he does not back down from any of this. And he's got such strong convictions and he very rarely misses.
This kind of goes into like his Time interview. We were talking about it earlier, and like how do we like? I'm glad we did this now because like Donald was talking about earlier, like before we hit record, like you've never gotten this type of Lewis before his move to Ferrari, and I just know he should have, because he should be able to talk all the shit he wants. You are a 7-time world champion, sir. And it's the fact that he was also so refrained, which also comes into media training. But that's another side of being the only black person in the sport, that we didn't really get to touch on. Is you have different set of rules. You have to you have to do twice as much to get half of what they got. I will never forget that line, and it's one of the more ones ingrained into my head. He, while taking on so many social issues and racism of his own, he still could not brag about it. And as media members of soccer on this podcast, we also know that we can't, we're treated differently. So I also applaud Lewis on the moment of staying in the right mindset for not only other people but for himself, because he knows that like if he goes out to brag about winning 7 championships, including with a lowly McLaren, or doing it while breaking barriers with Mercedes, and now hopefully doing it in a Ferrari car, that they're going to be like, oh, well, he's arrogant, he's bragging. We get those words because that's all they see is the aggression of a black person succeeding in something that they shouldn't be, which I know is a very wide open way to like start a newer discussion about what we're about to go into. But I just wanted that to be out there. Like, he's doing all this quietly because they don't give him, he can only express himself through his activism or his fashion or any type of anything like that, because they don't let you be joyous, black, and successful. So.
Also, do you know how powerful this man can be at times? He got an entire world to agree with Max Verstappen.
Oh yeah,
late last year when they were threatening community service for Max Verstappen swearing during press availability, and Max is like, I'm not doing community service. Like, I swear, like, sometimes you got to swear. You want us to be, honest and authentic. And sometimes curse words are going to come out. It's not like I'm actively seeking them out, yada, yada, yada. And Lewis is like, they're like, yeah, Lewis, like, what do you think about this? And he goes, I ain't doing community service either. Like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to race. We're not here to do community service. And all of a sudden the rest of the grid's like, yeah, we're not doing community service either. And got the whole world to be like, Max was right. Even on this show, we kind of said, "Yo, Max might have a point here."
I was about to say one of his biggest accomplishments in life is getting me to agree with Max Verstappen.
Yeah. I remember that one.
This whole pod was like, Lewis said that he has a point, and we have to go with this because he might be right. So again, he uses that power as well to help influence the changes, not just with little things like community service, but also safety issues. Like I mentioned, the coronavirus and making it where it was safe. Like he is at the forefront of those too, because he's looking out for guys on the grid. Like Ebony, like you said, wasn't anybody looking out for him, but he's still looking out for everybody else.
I want to end this part of the conversation because I do want to move on to him going to Ferrari and what that means. This was kind of like, we wanted to make sure we laid a lot of context for like, these are actually two icons coming together. One's an entire like auto manufacturer that's been historical and had like kids had their posters of their cars on their walls for decades, centuries. And one's a dude, right? but it's an iconic dude. And so in 2021, Lewis did an interview about his activism, promoting and making people aware of what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to George Floyd. And I want to quote what he says here because I think it touches on everything that we've discussed about how he's like thinking about what he thinks about, how he empathizes with others as well as executing his job, but also making sure that like he keeps himself okay so that he can be in position to help others. Because again, when you're black and you're this outspoken, you gotta win. If you stop winning, they stop listening to you. Like, oh, maybe if you would focus on just your driving, you win more. Like that stuff happens all the time to athletes, especially in this country. You hear that all the time. Oh, maybe you shouldn't have done this. And then and it's like that you can do both. But here's what Lewis said.
My favorite, shut up and dribble.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one. That happens a lot. So here's what Lewis said when asked about it. He said, I don't see it as a burden. It was definitely liberating to be able to open and speak about things. For people to know that there's much more to me than perhaps they realize from watching me on TV. I feel like I was built for this. There's a reason it was suppressed over all that time. And if it happened any sooner, I wouldn't be ready. I wouldn't be strong enough to handle it. I wouldn't be able to do my job as well and do both things at the same time. But now I'm equipped with the tools to do so. So I look at my niece and nephew. I look at my little cousins and I think, how can I make things better for you guys and your friends?
Bars.
I ain't got nothing else to say. Let's talk about him going to Ferrari. All right, so with that background, I do want to just get into like, can we just like take a minute to just like scream a little bit about the fact that he went to Ferrari? Because I feel like when this news dropped, it felt like I was being punked. Like, I've never been like a massive Ferrari fan. Like, obviously, I love the cars. I think like in the recent history, like laughing at Ferrari and their strategy decisions has been kind of one of the like third through lines of F1. But when when it was announced that he was going there, Ferrari is the most popular team. Like you can say a lot of things about Ferrari, but in terms of the history of the sport, most popular team, most wins, like they're it when it comes to that. The cost cap flattens things out, but like Ferrari is like the pinnacle. And to see that Lewis was going to make the decision to leave Mercedes and go to Ferrari, and it was real, not just somebody photoshopping some stuff and posting it online. It was legit. Yo, that was just it blew my mind, and I was like, I love the move just overall as an entire thing. Just like now, it felt like the perfect time, and it felt like the perfect pairing.
What do you which deal do you try this to for soccer? Because if it's basketball, it's everyone. Remember when everyone thought that Shams' account got hacked because he said that Luka was
traded the Luka trade.
What is the equivalent of this in soccer?
You know what? It's funny.
Is it Mbappe?
You know what? It might be because I was trying to think about this because I feel like it could have been like maybe LeBron if he would have gone to like the Lakers like right after Kobe, right after the Kobe era. Maybe like it's something like that. But in soccer, it's so tough to think about because like Messi made those Barcelona teams great. Where else could he have gone that would have been a little bit more iconic?
I will say it's probably when Ronaldo went to Real Madrid. In 2008.
The real Ronaldo, by the way.
Cristiano, or even the real Ronaldo too. Like or Figo, right? I'm a Real Madrid fan, so we have a lot of these.
Yeah, I was gonna say
many examples.
You got a list.
lot of Real Madrid.
She mentioned
I did not write a list down. I like let me proceed to write a list. No, I think also I'm blanking on. I think that our chat that was the catalyst for this pod started when this news came out because we were all just like text each other at the top of our in all caps, and then we're like, maybe the people who don't care about driving should not be a part of this. Maybe we should form our own subgroup set, our chat here, and we can scream at each other about this news because we saw it. We saw the official statement, to borrow from Real Madrid, we saw the Comunicado Oficial, and we still were like, that ain't real. They just play, right? Is it April? Is April 1st? Is April Fool's like a different date in Europe? And when Lewis came out, it was like, had that like first interview where he was talking about why he switched. And I think everyone was just kind of like, wait, like he's really saying the words Ferrari. Like those words are coming out of his mouth. Like that is a real big deal.
None of us were prepared because he had just re-signed with Mercedes. So it was like, there's no way he's breaking a contract with Mercedes at all. I thought he was finishing his career at Mercedes and then leaving for Ferrari. I just was like, okay.
All because they didn't want to give him ambassador money?
Yeah.
Well, the funniest thing is they
Mercedes,
also didn't want to give him like the years that he wanted. And it's like, are y'all serious right now? Like
it was like 2. It wasn't like he was asking for 10 more.
He was like, give me another 10 years. Like, give me a couple more. Which, on one hand, you and we have heard, but like around that, there's a book and it was an interview that had been done months before it was obviously published. But Toto Wolff was talking about shelf life and that every driver has a shelf life where they stop being as effective. But I'm sorry, I look out there and I see damn near 45-year-old Fernando Alonso. And I'm like, when he has a decent Aston Martin, he can get that thing up close to the podium positions or be on the podium from time to time. You telling me that if you, like, the main issue with Mercedes hasn't been Lewis Hamilton. It's been that damn car. So, like, you give him a championship winning car, and then let's talk about it. Like, if he can't get that car on the podium consistently, then okay, maybe we're talking about him in terms of, like, declining his physical skill set, and that eventually you can't compete at the top. We don't know if that's what's happened with Lewis. We're hoping to find out with a Ferrari that's very good, but to assume that and not give him another year on the contract feels like hustling backwards a little bit, even if you have Kimi Antonelli waiting in the wings. Antonelli could have been like, hey, buddy, 2026 is going to be your year, not really 2025. Maybe you can say something like that and see what happens. But I thought that was a little bit of copium from Mercedes, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I just, because again, I was very new to it, so I was like, this feels big. I didn't know if he would like ever leave there, just because it seemed like that was a partnership that was made in heaven. Especially, and then like, doing a little bit more research on it, you're just kind of like, okay, maybe he can get one more. I think that's what he was truly chasing, is one more title. But to not give him that opportunity to do that with you, it feels like it's you kind of lost that one.
You also get the symbolism though, right? It just, as you mentioned, he has a chance to break the all-time drivers record
Mhm.
in number of titles with the team that is buoyed in large part by the guy that other people consider one of the greatest of all time, and who had so many that he would break the tie with, driving the same car, with the same constructor. And I think a lot of people are just like, I think people are still, it's still kind of like, Cloud Nine, like a dream that we're seeing him in red, and that he's getting to finish his career with, the iconic Ferrari. But also, it's almost like, when Jordan came back, right? Everyone still thinks of him as the Bulls, right? If he had come back and won titles with the Wizards, I promise you, people would think of Michael Jordan first as the guy who led the Wizards to those titles. That's how that works. That's just how the mind works. You think about the last in time. Ray Bork was a Boston Bruin forever. He goes to the Avalanche. He wins the Stanley Cup. They think of him as Bruins legend, but they think of the Stanley Cup and him hoisting it wearing someone else's sweater. That's what this is going to be like. And I promise you, if he wins his 8th with Ferrari, there's going to be some salty people in black and seafoam green, because they're going to be like, that should have been us. And Hamilton's going to look at them hoisting that trophy saying, yeah,
could have been.
That should have been us. But us is over here now. And y'all didn't want us to be us. Ferrari did. And that symbolism, if it happens, is going to be incredible.
Yeah, and I think that, to me, is why one of the reasons I was so excited about it. Like, obviously, I don't really like Max Verstappen. I don't know if I've made that clear on this podcast yet.
Maybe.
That may shock some people to hear.
I think you've mentioned it once.
Yeah, I think probably. I remember maybe saying a thing or two. So like, the thing that's been, and really it stems from 2021. So it's really a Red Bull thing, Red Bull and Max Verstappen, because I feel like what they did was just egregious and wrong, and they know it. If it would have happened to them, they'd still be crying about it. The way Lewis handled that, and Mercedes, yeah, they were pissed off at the time, but I was like, nah, that's one of those things where like the sport got to burn to the ground for me. Like, if something like that happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was, that kind of is like the genesis of my frustration and hatred for that team. And knowing how the past few seasons have gone with Max Verstappen and Red Bull being so untouchable, I've been annoyed at it, because, especially like I said, we're doing a lot of this because a lot of people came in from Drive to Survive, and if that's your entry point, that's dope. Like that's what got me super into it as well. Like that was the genesis for a lot of people, even if they were generally aware of the sport before, kind of like I wasn't watching race after race like in a season. But to me, it was like, we don't have the concept or the context to be like, okay, how good was Lewis Hamilton? How good is he? We just see him losing to Max now in a Red Bull who has a much better car than what he's able to work with. Him going to Ferrari feels like it gives him a much better chance, because he'll have an actual car that can compete. We'll see if that's true. Testing was up and down for Ferrari. The last day of testing was a little bit worrying in terms of they had a hydraulic issue. Not going to get into all that. But I do want to read a quote, because we do have words now from drivers, because we've had testing. We've had some of these things go on, and the season is getting closer. And so we're hearing from the drivers and their mindset. And here's Lewis's mindset, because I do remember somebody did ask him, like, if you win your 8th, are you going to retire? Right. And this wasn't like a direct answer, but this is his mindset. I don't even know what the question was to this, but his response, love it. Quote, starts off with a banger. Don't ever compare me to anybody else. I'm the first and only black driver that's ever been in this sport. I'm built different. I've been through a lot. I've had my own journey. You can't compare me to another 40-year-old past or present Formula One driver in history, because they are nothing like me. I'm hungry, driven, don't have a wife and kids. I'm focused on one thing, and that's winning. That's my number one priority. Damn.
Bars.
Like, would he have ever given that answer if he was still at Mercedes?
Ooh, that's a
No.
good question. I don't
Everyone's
think
because
so.
I've seen that question asked, but no one's really answering the question. Like, does Mercedes give him the opportunity to answer a question like that? Or because Ferrari is Ferrari, he gets the freedom to be himself finally, that he can say, no, I'm 1-1 and no one else is touching me right now. So how dare you ask me if I'm retiring right now?
I think also it's partially there are still some people out there, right? And there's some people who will say that they're Lewis Hamilton haters, just like we rightfully are Max Verstappen haters. And they will say that this move is a move of desperation, that he's just doing this for, social media, right? Like the social media has been banging since he moved over. And people are thinking, yeah, he's going to do all this and he's going to be like a guy like Fernando Alonso on the grid, right? Just kind of driving her up the last few years with a new team just because he can. I think this is him sending a shot to those people saying, like, guys, I don't know who you thought I was, but I am the greatest. I am the best driver. I have 7 worlds. I am going for 8th. This is not me doing little victory lap farewell tour. This is me trying to get my 8th that is due me, that has been taken away from me, not once, not twice, but 3 times. That is what Lewis Hamilton is saying by moving to this. He's saying, I'm going to do this now. I want to do it over there, but Ferrari gave an opportunity to step into the most iconic car that has ever been produced and do it with them. And damn it, I took it. And so don't compare my journey to anybody else's because they ain't got the facilities for that. Like that's what he's saying. And again, as we're all Lewis lovers, right? We're gonna believe every word. And I think the idea is now he has that chip on the shoulder that he may not have had if he stayed at Mercedes. Because if he stayed at Mercedes, it's just the relationship continuing until the very end, and something like that. But now that he's moving, he feels he's kind of saying it. He's like, I have this first day of school vibes. I got to reprove myself again to everybody. And this is not just a move for me. This is a move that's going to be successful for Ferrari too.
You mentioned something else about it that I want to talk about too. A little bit more lighthearted than his bars that he dropped. You talk about for the social media. He didn't do it for the social media, but can we talk about the social media?
The social media has been banging
because this has been just an absolute like whirlwind of just expert social mediaing. Like expert, like when the first photos dropped, him in front of the house, Enzo Ferrari's house with the red. And then some people don't understand. Like Lewis is one of those really cerebral characters. Like one of the things that like Taylor Swift fans get really deep into hers because she drops these little Easter eggs and all of that and stuff and some of her stuff. People are like, oh, the 7 windows and 1 door, that was just coincidence. I guarantee you it was not. That man is calculated.
His social media game has improved tremendously. I'm like, you again, you didn't do it for the social media, but you're doing it and it's working. Yeah. Like it feels like you are purposely, like you said, he's calculated. It just feels refreshing. He feel like everything looks livelier. Like, and now you're partnering with Lululemon. Like, what did that come from?
Look, if Ferrari does not have that picture on a shirt when they release the 2025 apparel, they do not like money. It's very simple. They like that will be put it on a cup, put it on a mug, put it on a hat, put it should be
like transition cup where like as it gets hotter, it's just his photo pops up with the windows.
Photo pops up more, right? Or like you put the ice in it, it cools up, right? Mm-hmm. Like it should be like custom make where you like insert image. They go, okay, what would you like to put it on? We have 900,000 things that we can put this on, from mouse pads to hoodies. That again, it ties the imagery together, ties the iconicness of two entities together, right? Like Ferrari, iconic, Lewis Hamilton, iconic, tying those together in that way on January 1st, right? The very first day they could post something, anything with that. And that's where everyone was like, okay, they're like, win, lose, or draw, they know this is not a game. Like they know they have to back this up. And they continue to do it on the social media front. But like, again, it won't mean anything. We're going to hear if he finishes 5th at in Australia in week 1, people are going to be like, see, probably should have been, on the track instead of, taking all these pictures in front of Enzo house. Like, we're going to hear that. But us, we know, like, this is him again. This is the chip. This is part of that. He's like, I'm going to basically tell Mercedes every day of the year through my social media that you made an incredibly big mistake saying that Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton, is not worth being an ambassador to your brand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, people can say that if they want to say or think that, but this dude has shown so many times that like he can do it all and will do it all. We've just talked about that, especially in the last segment. But like for me, this already means something. Like it's already a super dope collaboration between two just iconic brands and people like who have been around for a long time and dominating this sport in different eras. This is like perfect to me. And for me, it's also like Ferrari has a lot of the pressure as well. Like you got to live up to this. He could stay in a mid like a mid what fourth place car, maybe the sixth or eighth best car on the grid. He could have stayed there. That's not the goal. The goal is to win, and they need to be ready to do that. And so I'm glad that like Fred Vasseur is there, and he has a lot of people that are there. They rehired Angela Cullen, who was there with him a lot as trainer at Mercedes. So like they've done a ton to kind of put things around him. But like the thing that we saw, especially throughout last year when he was having troubles with the car and struggling in qualifying and certainly in some of the races. But then on those days when it came together, you still saw that Lewis Hamilton of old where he can still get that thing around a track quicker than anybody else. To me, that's the part where Ferrari says, okay, we know, we saw it. We just have to give him the tool. And to me, that's on them to make sure they give him the tool because otherwise they're going to look silly. He is ready for this. He said he's ready for this. The posting is elite. It's incredible. And like, it's actually like really kind of fun to see an athlete lean in this hard to like the social media. And like, I just imagine the power that you must feel, the power and the confidence that you must feel when like, as soon as you drop something, the whole like F1 world just stops. Like, everybody got to go see it. They got to go share it. We're sending it to the group chat. Like that's just an incredible amount of power. And I love what he does with it.
Literally the whole world stopped when that picture came out. It's like happy January 1st to everybody.
Dangerous.
There are people that didn't know nothing about racing. They just knew I was getting into it that sent me that. And I was like, yeah, that dude's on another level. Dude's on another level. All right. Ebony, any last words before we get out of here?
No, here's the title number 8.
Hell yeah. And 9 and 10. Get them all back.
Charles
Leclerc might be a little upset, but whatever.
Not 3, not 4. We about to get them all.
You can get constructors too. Like
exactly.
Share the love of the team. Everybody winning.
Right. There you go. Right. So yeah. Okay. So we definitely wanted to make sure we do this. We've got other episodes coming out as well. You just probably listen to, or hopefully you listen to our final team preview, which dropped earlier this week. That's out. We previewed every single one of the teams. So make sure you see that it's across 3 episodes. We started at the bottom of the constructor standings, went all the way up to the top, looked at every single team and what we expect. And then we also dropped a hot take. No prizes for guessing what Ebony's hot take was, but you've been following the podcast. So we've done that. We have our season preview that is going to come up where we're all going to go through just our expectations for the entire season. We've got that coming up. We're also going to drop some hot takes then because we can't help ourselves. And so we got a lot more coming. Of course, racing is starting as well. We do previews and we do reviews of each race. We're about to be all the way up in it, and this is going to be fun. So we wanted to make sure we had time to do this one because the combination of Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari is so iconic. Thought it was really worth a look back. So for Ebony, for Donald, I'm Andre. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.